In the actually the first game of the night, it would be Craig Parkinson and his Akron Westfield Westerners, big underdogs to Coach Tom Dennis and the Lawton Bronson Eagles. But tonight, Parkinson got the most out of his ball club. Pick up action in the final quarter. Westerners trailed by 7. Jason Schneider hits the 3 to make it a 4-point ball game with 5 minutes left. Now, under a minute left in the game, the score tied at 60. Darren Frericks drives the baseline, gets the bucket to fall, 62-60, Akron Westfield on top. Eagle head coach Tom Dennis beginning to fidget just a little bit. His club would have one more shot at the lead. Less than 10 seconds in the game. Dave Edwards will take his only shot of the night. And it's good. And Lawton Bronson comes from behind in the last second to beat
rankings of the year. Of those teams, only 3 didn't make the postseason playoffs. None more glaring than Akron Westfield, ranked #1 in Class 1A throughout most of the season, but a loss on Friday night to Hinton leaves the Westerners in the stands for the playoffs. In Class 1A, Wall Lake View Auburn is 4th, Akron Westfield finishes 8th, Southern Calhoun is 9th, and Hinton, the winner over the weekend, is 10th. Akron Westfield coach Craig Parkinson told me today that he's willing to live by the current playoff system.
There's probably no real fair way unless all teams would be invited, like in the basketball tournament, but I don't think our weather in Iowa is going to cooperate with that idea. District football, I don't think is the answer either. If we would have been in district football, it would have been Hinton and us in the showdown of the district, and the winner still would go to the playoffs. So the playoffs start, and that's a whole new season, and we wish all the teams good luck. It's a real exciting time for all the communities involved, and we wish them luck, and maybe next year.
As Coach Parkinson mentions, the Iowa playoffs do begin Wednesday night.
Akron, Iowa is where town and country meet. But Akron Westfield opponents probably won't want to meet up with the Westerners this year. They won their first outright conference title last year. And keep in mind, the team returned 7 starters on each side of the ball. After attending the team's fan appreciation night this week, I realized this team is making all the right moves. For the past 13 years, Coach Craig Parkinson has invited the public out to one of his preseason practices.
Listen how we call plays, look at the kids' eyes, and
Fan Appreciation Night gives the residents of Akron and Westfield the chance to better understand football, a game they follow with a passion.
Ready? Years ago, when Akron didn't always win or have a very good season, people still turned out to watch football, and they like good, hard-hitting football, and it comes down to their kids.
Fans, young and old, have had a lot to appreciate in recent years. A conference title for the Westerners in 6 of the last 8 seasons, and last year they made the playoffs for the first time.
I think to make the playoff is a real honor. I think you have to be real prepared, you have to be real good, and you have to be really have to be lucky.
Lucky, maybe, but when describing this team, it's easy to talk in superlatives. The fastest, smartest, biggest, tallest. The smallest? That's Jason Richards, but at 145 pounds, a gifted safety and split end. Last season, he set a conference receiving record. So much for his size.
It's a lot to come by. I was a small starter last year, and it just slowly take the shots, but if you can give them back, you can start.
The team's biggest player is all-conference lineman Ryan Lahr. He even outgrew his jersey in the off-season after putting on 25 pounds.
Oh, I pumped a lot of iron in the off-season, mainly, and did some running and just took on my intake of meals and stuff like that. Ate a lot. I felt we need more on offensive line. We're very small this year, I feel. We got a guy 195, then we dropped down.
Valedictorian hopeful, as well as a third-team All-State linebacker. Higman set a school record last season, making 130 tackles. Mike Kenny will also need his thinking cap. The senior makes the transition from slot back to quarterback.
It's been real tough to get used to having to be in control of everything. I've played pretty near every position in practice and everything, but it's hard being able to know what all the linemen are going to do. That's the toughest part.
He'll have to be on his toes. Kenny will direct one of the most innovative offenses in the area.
No, I think one of the things about football is that it should be fun and exciting for not only the fans and the coach, but also for the players. And we have been known to run one or two interesting plays. I think it keeps our opponents so that they have to prepare more for us. One advantage of a smaller school is that kids can do more than one thing. And
well-balanced athletes. That's what you get at Akron Westfield. But it's keeping opponents off balance that'll determine how far this team can go. And Akron Westfield should go a long way again. They were 5-0.
The Westerners are 3-0 thus far and ranked #1 among Iowa's Class 1A schools. News Center 4's Dave Feldman paid that team a visit this afternoon. Dave.
That's right, I did, Rick. You know, 2 years ago, this team gave up only 21 points the entire season. This year, it looks like more of that same. This is the guy, Craig Parkinson, in charge, his 13th year at the helm. His team 3-0 this year and have outscored their opponents 119-0. Last year's team finished 7-0 in regular season play, the best record in Akron Westfield history. Coach Parkinson believes diversity is the key to this year's success.
You know, 2 years ago, I had 2 quarterbacks, and we alternated quarterbacks, and we kind of went with who had the hot hand, which I know is different. This year, we've used 3 varsity quarterbacks. I know who the first team is. The kids know who the first team is, but they're not scared of going into any game with any 3. We change around.
I like the philosophy of that because with one star, if he was good one night, he's good, but if he's bad the other night, he could ruin the whole game. And so we're very versatile. We have a lot of really good athletes on our team. I kind of think we could compete rather well in the 2A. I think. I'm not saying that we're going to go in there and blow them all out or anything, but I think we could compete rather well. And nobody wants to get big-headed and nothing and get too overconfident, and that's when you slack up and get beat. We got a lot of people that play both ways, and I know it adds a little different dimension. You know, everybody hits a little harder because you get more intense if you're on defense and offense, and it really helps out the team.
The key to this team, Rick, so far, it seems, like we said, the diversity. 3 players so far have scored 2 or more touchdowns in one game. They don't seem too affected by the #1 ranking. They seem to keep level heads, and this Friday against Aurelia, so a positive attitude out there in Akron Westfield.
Yeah, okay, we'll look for them come playoff time. Thank you, Dave. Now, the first...
As Doug Eberhardt tells us tonight, for the Westerners of Akron Westfield, 0 has become a very important digit.
The question is, what's new with the Akron Westfield defense? The answer? Absolutely nothing. Every Friday, it's the same story. No points for the opponent. The Westerners haven't been scored on through 4 games.
Our defense is something that our school is really proud of. We've always tried to have really good defense. That's pretty much what we're famous for.
This is the goal line. For most teams, it's a realistic goal to reach. But for opponents of Akron Westfield, crossing this line has become nearly impossible.
Physically, I don't think they can score on us. Mentally, maybe. If we break down, I think they could score. Mentally, if we break down. But physically, I don't really see why not.
Physical and ferocious. Once that ball is snapped, many Westerners come calling. This season's opponents have averaged less than a yard a carry.
One guy will wrap him, and then 2 other guys will come up and hit him low or hit him high, and we usually ring the guy's bell pretty well.
Members of this team have to be in great shape. 9 of the athletes start on both sides of the ball. But what's amazing about this scoreless streak? The Westerners rarely practice defense.
Sometimes you practice something and the kids get in their mind, God, we must really be bad at this because we keep practicing and practicing this. And so the reverse of that can be true too, where we don't practice it as much and the kids feel real good about themselves and their defense.
With a defense this tough, opponents better be prepared. Doug Eberhardt, Major 9 Sports, Akron, Iowa.
The Westerners try for a 5th straight shot.
For not only the fans and the coach, but also for the players. And we have been known to run 1 or 2 interesting plays before. I think it keeps our opponents so that they have to prepare more for us.
He's got a reputation for pulling off the trick play when nobody expects it. He always used to do that, but now he's made his reputation. Everybody thinks he's running trick plays, so we've more or less went back to the run right at you.
The Major probably just happy to be playing football, let alone excelling. Jared Hinrich had his football season end a little prematurely last year, but he's making up for that this season. Channel 4's Joel Johnson explains.
Here's a sight you don't see too often. Number 24, Jared Henrich on the Akron Westfield sideline. You see, when the Westerners have the ball, he's a punishing running back, and on defense, he terrorizes the opponent's quarterback. But to some people, it's amazing he's playing football at all. This is Henrich a year ago, running wild in the Westerners' homecoming matchup against Galen. That night, he ran for 225 yards, his best game ever. But that would be the last game that Jared would suit up for that season.
Well, it was about this time a year ago that he ended up with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and he ended up then, 4 or 5 days later, he ended up in St. Luke's Hospital.
Didn't know what to do when I woke up one morning and couldn't get out of bed. So I tried to crawl down the steps. It didn't work very well. I fell down the steps, and my parents came. They took me to the hospital. It was really scary.
Guillain-Barré syndrome can be life-threatening. So when a tragedy like this strikes, it brings both the team and the community closer together.
It's a life-threatening situation, and he nearly died on Thursday. And all of a sudden, the whole outlook of our team, the whole season dramatically changed as the emphasis was not on the game of football, but it was on Jared's health.
Well, everybody in the community really pulled together for me. I had a lot of cards. I had a big bag full of cards by the time I left. And I also got the homecoming football, which was a real treat since that was my best game I ever had.
This past Saturday was a year later. The opponent was once again Galen, and Jared Henrich was back on the field with his running shoes on. In Lamar's with our Channel 4 Athlete of the Week, Jared Henrich. Joel Johnson, Channel 4 Sports.
And Clint Nielsen is one of the reasons that the Westerners have put together an undefeated record and can clinch a conference title as well as a playoff berth with a win Friday over Hinton. But there's more to Nielsen than just football. As Tom Reither recently found out, Nielsen is truly being all that he can be. You heard that saying before somewhere? If you have, we'll put it all together for you tonight at 10. Can be. It's something that just about every coach asks of his players. Akron Westfield head man Craig Parkinson has had good luck at getting senior Clint Nielsen to buy into that theory. And as our Tom Reither recently found out, Parkinson's gain is also Uncle Sam's gain.
One in the play, second. On the battlefields of Akron Westfield, Clint Nielsen, number 68, an offensive tackle. He's helped lead the Westerners to a 7-0 record, good enough to be ranked 3rd in the state's Class 1A poll. At practice, Nielsen leads the team through drills. This football season has been good to Clint, unlike last year. As a junior, Clint didn't have a lot of playing time.
He wasn't quite big enough or fast enough or strong enough to play in the offensive line or to play linebacker, outside linebacker in defense, and he was kind of struggling. And
Clint knew something had to be done. Something had to change. But away from the games, away from the practices, away from school, there's another side to Clint that his teammates don't get to see. Last summer, he joined the Army Reserves. After a few weeks of boot camp, Clint became part of the reserve unit in nearby Cherokee.
Before I went to basic training, I was kind of irresponsible, and but it taught me a lot of responsibility and how to get along on my own. And
a summer of training has also helped him on the field, becoming more of a leader.
He's a lot stronger. He leads us in a lot of our conditioning drills, and he's done an excellent job for us this year on the offensive line, and he's become a real factor in the success of our team.
Another reason Clint joined the reserves has to do with his future.
Well, there's a lot of benefits, like for college, and I needed money for college, and I thought it'd be kind of a adventure kind of too. I've always been kind of interested in the Army.
Maybe the Army isn't for everybody, but Clint has used the training and discipline he's learned to make himself a better football player, and more importantly, a better person. In Akron, Tom Reither, Major 9 Sports.
And on Friday, taking on conference, but Hinton does have 1 loss overall, and if Hinton dropped its 2nd game tonight, well, the playoffs might be out of reach. Akron Westfield has Rock Valley next week, so this was a very important game for both ball clubs. Channel 4's Brad Pouch was in Akron tonight. He joins us with the highlights. Brad.
Larry, every time it gets to be this time of year, you know it's playoff time. There's a lot of excitement, and as you said, Hinton really needed this one, but unfortunately, they really ran into a buzzsaw tonight up at Akron. The Westerners were ahead of the rest tonight, as the sign said, and they were definitely ahead of Hinton tonight. 14-0 at halftime. The Hinton offense was stymied by the Akron Westfield defense and also by the fact that they lost their top running back, Jason Thompson, in the first quarter with a knee injury. He didn't play the rest of the game. But Westerner coach Craig Parkinson had his top back tonight, Jared Henrich. Here's 3rd quarter action. Henrich with the nifty inside handoff. He will cut it upfield, and he outruns the Hinton defense on his way to a 44-yard touchdown to make the score 21-0 Akron Westfield. Now for a little more Westerner defense. Here at Hinton, quarterback Matt Ballou rolls out, and he will get sandwiched by Henrich and Grant Van Beek on the big hit. And we change ends in the fourth quarter. Ballou will go back to pass again, but Westerner defensive back and quarterback Eric Torbert shoots down that duck. He will return the interception with a nice run across field inside Hinton territory. And a couple of plays later, it's Jarrett Henrich again. This time, a 13-yard touchdown. Looked like the same play that he scored from 44 yards out. Akron Westfield finishes the season undefeated in the War Eagle Conference, and they are the conference champion. And as you mentioned, Larry, Akron Westfield, a very tough game next week against Rock Valley Boyden Hall, but they seem to be hitting on all cylinders right now.
Well, as we speak, actually the Akron Westfield team might want to watch these Knicks highlights because we're going to take a look at Rock Valley, and this was a great ball game. Well, our Buena Vista shooters were out stalking the sidelines
Field territory, but on fourth down, quarterback Matt Below is stopped on the sneak, and the ball is turned back over to Akron Westfield. Second quarter action now. The Westerners put together a drive. Eric Torbert finds Aaron Wilmot, who makes a couple of good moves and heads toward the inside of the field and back to the outside. He eventually gets down to the 12-yard line, a 48-yard gain. 2 plays later on the Hinton 2-yard line, it's the quarterback sneak. Eric Torbert sneaks it in, and the points are on the board. Akron Westfield 7, Hinton nothing. Now, just before the halftime, on the 10-yard line, Jared Henrich gets the handoff, finds some open room, hits the end zone, and Akron Westfield leads 14-0. In the second half, the Akron Westfield defense stays tough, and Akron Westfield wins this game by a final score of 28-0. This is Tom Ryther, Major 9 Sports.
And Akron looks like
Play will cover 77 yards in all as he rambles untouched, and after the 2-point conversion, the score is 8-0 Westerners. After another touchdown by Wilmot, a 2-yard play midway in the second quarter, Jared Hendrick goes in from the 4-yard line, and that gives Akron Westfield a 22-0 lead at the half. Then in the third quarter, after Sergeant Bluff Luton fumbled the onside kick by Akron Westfield, the Westerners score again, this time on a deep pass from quarterback Eric Torbert, tight end Tony Niamaso. And that made it 29-0 as the Westerners go on and roll in this game. Final score 36-6. And we'll take a look at the rest of
Luton, a team that last week gave unbeaten Hinton fits before the Hinton Blackhawks came back to win it. Warriors with upset on their mind again tonight. Homecoming, as I said, the Westerners were ready to win one for the home crowd. Eric Tolbert hands off to Aaron Wilmot, and he goes 69 yards for the first touchdown. Wilmot rushed for 126 yards on the night. 8-0 Akron Westfield. In the second quarter, a 5-yard run by Jared Henrich, our athlete of the week, making it 15-0. Henrich, 133 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on the night. And the Westerners defense made the Warrior offense pay for every single yard the Sergeant Bluff Luton managed. Watch this hit coming up. Ouch, that hurts. Once again, the Westerners defense rattled the Warriors. Wilmot almost